Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you, kids? Hope they are fine and you family to find. May Allah always bless us and give mercy for us. And then happy learning. Before us to continue, let's pray together. Hands up, head down, let's pray. Rabbi zidni ilman warzuqni fahman wa'allimni bis-solihin. Amin. Thank you so much. Okay, today we are going to talk about our speaking skill and then our material about car transportation. We are going to talk about car transportation. And then you can find the story of car transportation, the first car, until we can see now the cover of cars, and then we can see, look at this picture, you can see the modern car now. In the first car, nobody finds machine at the time. The first car, specifically for the wheels, it was made of wood, it was made of rock, and it was made now, it's made of metal. And then you can find some differences between the cars at the time, some years old, and then now. And then you can find for the first car, mobil pertama itu menggunakan mesin uap. And then you can find it. Let's check and then see this video, other explanation. Maybe you can find inspiration from this video. Okay, let's see it together.
Lots of people tried for hundreds of years to create self-propelled transportation, with a missionary hanging out in Peking with the Kangxi Emperor. When he wasn't doing astronomy or working on the calendar, he was tinkering in the garage, inventing gadgets to entertain the emperor. He was basically the first car boy. His coolest invention by far was a 2-foot-long cart with a primitive steam engine on board. I guess technically that made him a cart boy. It was basically a plank with 5 wheels and a boiler that blew steam on a little turbine that turned the wheels and made the car move.
Nah, that means the steam edge machine, dia menggunakan seperti fungsi mesin uap ya. Jadi we can see next.
Ferdinand had technically invented an automobile, but it was pretty small, so you couldn't ride it. So it wasn't, and it was only a matter of time that followed the principles of Verbier's toy cart. French inventor Nicolas Cugnot did just that in 1769 with his Fardier à vapeur. And if I mispronounce that, you can in 1769 with his Fardier à vapeur.
Now, for this picture, actually you can find in your book, and then I think in your book page, you can find in your book page for this explanation, means that you can find it in page, okay, you can find it in page 30 and 31. That's about the first self-propelled car. You can check it there about the car.
What was his name? Mr. Mask, only at a top speed of 2.5 miles an hour. The French army, which was funding the project, was kind of disappointed with the performance. The Fardier was canceled before it could make it to production, but people have built working recreation of Cugnot's design, and they're pretty sweet. The front-mounted steam engine looks weird as hell, but there's a visible progression from Ferdinand Verbier's toy cart to Cugnot's machine almost 100 years later. But like the toy cart, the Fardier was not a car either. Steam engine technology progressed through the 19th century. In 1801, Richard Trevithick unveiled his Puffing Devil, which wasn't his bong, but a steam locomotive for the road. Trevithick was basically illiterate for his entire life, but loved working on machines. The Puffing Devil was powered by a strong steam engine. similar to those used on riverboats. This updated design made the engine much smaller, but more prone to boiler explosions. The Devil's first test run was on Christmas Eve when it successfully climbed up a gentle slope in Cornwall. A few days later, Trevithick took the Devil out for another drive, but for whatever reason, forgot to put out the fire in the boiler and left the Devil just sitting outside. With all this heat and steam building up with nowhere left to go, pressure in the tank skyrocketed. And then, pop! You know, sometimes you smoke the puffin' devil, sometimes it smokes you. All these inventions so far are kind of cars, but each one is missing an element that keeps them from being considered the first car by historians. Ferdinand Verbier's toy cart thing laid the groundwork for what the car would be, but it was just a toy. Nicola Cugno realized the practical application of self-propelled travel, but was never able to mass produce it. And the puffing devil kind of made people think twice about steam engines because it exploded. So what would make the car a car? Well, it has to be big enough to hold passengers, practical enough that it can replace the horse and wagon, and it has to be reliable enough that it doesn't just blow up. Is there any early invention that can do all three? Yeah, a few. In 1858, Jean-Joseph Etienne Lenoir invented the first commercially successful internal combustion engine. Being an inventor like the rest of these guys, he decided to attach his engine to a cart. Boom! Car! The three-wheeled Lenoir Hippomobile, that's what he called it, made the 11-mile journey from Paris to Joinville-le-Pont in 3 hours. Not bad. But because of the automobile, that honor goes to a guy named Carl Benz. German patent number 37435 was awarded to Carl Benz and its motorized carriage on January 29, 1886. Version of the automobile. On January 29, 1886. The Benz patent motor wagon was powered by a 4-stroke motor that Carl had designed himself. The 943cc engine produced 2/3 of a horsepower at 230 RPM. If the Benz kind of looks like a tricycle, that's because Carl was a huge cyclist and even ran a repair shop before working on the motor wagon. The tricycle layout made more sense to Benz over a 4-wheel carriage because it would be less complicated, lighter, and easier to steer. Benz worked on his design for years, but was hesitant to go into production. Would people even want the motor wagon? And how would they know that it was better than a horse? Fortunately for Carl, his wife took matters into her own hands. In the summer of 1888, Bertha Benz borrowed the motor wagon when Carl wasn't looking. She and her 2 sons planned to make the 50-mile journey from Mannheim to her mom's house in Pforzheim before sundown. She left a note on the table and left at dawn. Bertha had to adjust the carburetor and make Ed's house as the sun went down. That the future would be driven by the automobile. Bertha's drive was monumental in pushing both the Benz motor wagon and the idea of the automobile as we know it onto the world stage. Without a doubt, the were developed to function as one unit. But the car didn't appear overnight. Verbier, Cugno, Trevithick, Lenoir, and lots of other guys, they didn't create the first real car, but their contributions were instrumental in helping Benz make his. And he wouldn't have succeeded without.
Okay, that's the one of the video about the transportation actually, and then you can tell the story about that. The first transportation, and the Ustazah we already watched who made for the or tried to discover for the first car, and what happened with the first car, and then the first people think that it's just the toy car, and the second part adalah steam engine yang menggunakan mesin uap ya. Kemudian next you can see the transformation for the second car, but the end of the discover you can see boom boom meledak, it's burned, yeah. And then for the last you can see the situation now, and then you can see the kinds of cars now, like a taxi, like a bus. You can find the some kinds of car. And then remember, you have to mention before you make it. Before you make a video, you have to say salam. The first thing you have to remember, and then next, your name, full name, class, and then your school. Remember, too much students say, I'm from. They say, I'm from. No, don't use it. I'm from means that you come from the Australia, for example, you come from Makassar, yeah. So you just say, my name is, for example, my name is Aulia Fisabilillah, and then I'm 6th grade Abu Bakar As-Siddiq, yeah. I'm 6th grade Abu Bakar As-Siddiq, Al-Biruni Mandiri School. And then you can tell the story about the cars for the first car until the cars, the last car, or now you can see the kinds of car, and then maybe you wanna add your opinion about the cars in the future, you can. And then the last, don't forget to say salam. You close your presentation about the story of car with salam. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. And then for more information, maybe you can search in Bahasa and then you can translate in English. And then if you get problem, Ustazah hope you can discuss with Ustazah or share something. Maybe any word that you didn't understand how to pronounce or what is the meaning of the car, you can send message to Ustazah Rahma. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope that you can get the idea brilliant. And then, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you, my kids.